but I'm extremely excited tonight to kick off the Legends Week. The first guest tonight that I'll bring him on shortly, Coach Mike Davis, is going to be set to join me. I want to make sure I give a special shout out to the Rome Sports Hall of Fame for helping me sponsor all the coaches here, and Kelly Hoke as well. On the bottom of the screen across the ticker, you're going to see all the Rome Sports Hall of Fame information, but I want to make sure I plug it here fast. Their Facebook page, make sure you go to the Rome Sports Hall of Fame and Museum. They're located at 5790 Rome New London Road, right here in Rome. Phone number is 315-339-9038. And I want to make sure I thank Dave Spragla and the entire Rome Sports Hall of Fame for helping me make this thing happen. You can reach out to Dave, SBARADAV at AOL.com. And they also have a Venmo account at the Rome Sports Hall of Fame. And you can also find their GoFundMe page as well. I also want to give a special shout out tonight to Tony Levidotti for helping sponsor tonight's show. So thanks, Tony. Glad you're doing well and better. So if you're watching on YouTube, it's interactive. If you're watching on Facebook, if you have any questions, comments for Coach or myself tonight, I will do the best I can to pull as many questions over as I can tonight. So without further ado, we had some technical difficulties getting set up, but we made it happen. So let me bring Coach into the broadcast here. I can see a Coach. How are you? Let me unmute him. That would be nice if I there we go. Now I got you, Coach. I had you on mute.
It's okay. Probably should put it on for the whole show.
We made it happen. I was a little worried, but we made it happen. So, Coach, I got to say, I was a little nervous because there were so many people that reached out to me tonight and said they had a lot of questions and they had a lot of stories that they wanted to share. And I told them, I don't have all day and all night here. I can't sit here for 3 hours. So I'll try to bring as many over as I can tonight. So I appreciate it.
It'll be good.
Coach, I want to start with your playing career. I want to start a little bit, three-sport athlete, football, basketball, baseball. And, when I played, all I heard was the best athlete was Mike Davis. Mike Davis, Mike Davis. So talk to me a little bit about your playing career. You played for a lot of good coaches, a lot of history too.
Yeah, basically it all started when you were young. I mean, you had a playground across the street. I lived on Court Street, and Stevensfield was right across the street. And, you hear a lot of the old timers talk about you go by playgrounds now and you don't see a lot of kids playing. But back in our day, you get up in the morning and about 9 o'clock and you'd go to bed at 10 o'clock. You were over at the playground all night. And that's where it really started. I had the fortunate to play with older people. My brother John, my brother Dave, they're all older than me. A big influence was Denny Perry, Coach Perry across the street. He kind of ran the whole show at Stevensfield. The Ruby Boys and Clickies. I mean, we were always playing, and your dad was right down the street also. And he would tell you the same thing. You picked it up right there. And actually, the thing that would probably help me the most was that you played with older people. And I try to tell my grandson, it doesn't hurt to play up because you can only get better. So, I mean, that's what I would tell all the kids. Play up. You can only get better. And so it all started on the playgrounds. I want to thank the late Ray Vaccaro. He introduced me to Pop Warner football. That's where it all started. And down in Little League, my dad and your grandfather, and they're all down there. That's where we all started our games and to pick up everything as far as knowing the games, the basics. From there, obviously, it went to high school, junior high, JVs, and varsity. And like you said, you picked up so much from the coaches that you learned from the earlier on. The coaches then, we call them old school coaches. They're all about teaching fundamentals, basics, and hopefully, it carried on to, the skill level and that type of thing. But that's where it all started, on the playgrounds, and we went from there.
Coach, when you say the playgrounds, I think that's one of the things today's day. I mean, when I was younger, and I'm sure Justin too, but I remember, Brian 80 and I would spend a whole day at Franklin Field. We get on our bikes at 8 o'clock in the morning. We were throwing the baseball around. We'd come home and throw the football around. Nowadays, when you go around town, obviously now with COVID, it's different, but I think we're missing that in today's day, aren't we? Kids aren't doing that anymore like they did.
There's no, I mean, you know what you're up against. You're up against the technology, your kids doing the games and this and that. And, that's the way of the world right now. But you didn't have that stuff. You only had a few TV channels, if you think about it. We'd go over and play screen ball. How many people played screen ball,
Yeah.
And one of the big things we did is we had a little transistor radio right near the tree. And when Mickey Mantle got up, the whole game stopped. We had to listen to what, the Mick did. And but it was a thing that you did everything. You played baseball. If you weren't there at 9 o'clock, you probably didn't play because we had 18 guys ready to go. And same thing with they had the hockey rinks and the playgrounds were all through Rome. It wasn't just Stevens Field and then the big field was Franklin Field, and then you had Griesick Field and you had Penny Field and you had up at Roth Park. I mean, they were all over. I mean, kids were playing all over. And, it wouldn't stop at the playgrounds at night. We'd be playing kick the can and things like that. You just don't see that anymore. They're all indoors. And I think that's hurt, as far as the skill level, because you got to play the game to get a little bit better. You can't just go out and play it once in a while. So that's what helped us. We were playing day in and day out.
Coach, you played for some legendary coaches too, throughout high school. Talk about what it was like to play for some of those guys.
They were in a class themselves. With football, obviously, that was a big sport in town. My coach was Coach Don Bruce. With his staff was the late Ed Weed. I mean, they don't get any better than him as far as the offensive line coach. We had Coach Rafferty, Jim Rafferty. I mean, if you ask anybody about Coach Raff, they just love this guy. I mean, as far as not only knowing what the game was about, but he just made it fun. Another great coach was Bob Ryan. He also coached me in basketball. I had him in JV basketball. Those were the top people that I had in football. I played for Lou Bennett in basketball and Joe Swark in baseball. So, I mean, these were guys that molded me and got me ready to go on to college. They were all great coaches. I mean, as you know, football-wise, there was a string of time there that we hadn't lost for 5 years. I mean, I was lucky, and your dad part of it, for 3 of those years on the varsity. But we just emulated what they had started a long time ago. I mean, you talk about legends. I mean, Jerry Burleson, one of the best running backs and athletes in Rome, no doubt about it. My brother, he was a quarterback for the varsity for a year. Just some great athletes. And, I know last year it came out, I think it was Max Prep with, I don't know if it wasn't publicized enough here in Rome, but they put on an article that who were the top winningest football programs in each state. And RFA was number 1 in the state of New York. They are number 1 right now. I think it was something like 640 some odd wins. And I didn't, that should be known to kids these days. I mean, that's when you talk about tradition. I mean, come on, you're the top, top winningest school in the state of New York. So it was something around here in those days back in the early 60s. And even before that. It wasn't just then. RFA was always dominant in football, but the other sports as well. So,
Coach, you guys didn't have obviously the state playoffs back then, and I know you guys didn't have the 3-point line. I always hear my dad say, if there was the 3-point line, you guys would have probably broke a lot of records with that 3-point line. But how do you think it would have been years ago with the state playoffs?
Well, that's what as old timers get together. We didn't even have sectionals. You played 8 games. It was an 8-game schedule. It wasn't even a 10-game schedule. It was 8 games, and it was a league contest for 5 or 6 of them. You played some non-league games. I mean, not many people wanted to play us as far as being a non-league game, but we played anybody. But they didn't have sections. They didn't have states. What could we have gone on? everybody says we probably could have won a few. You know, you never know. I mean, just my class alone. I mean, in the 3 years there, I mean, we had several kids that went Division I, and the the opponents. I mean, they were good. The Whitesboro's, the New Hartfords, the Notre Dames. It was a very talented area around here. But I don't know what would have happened. It would have been nice to know. You know, the basketball. You bring that up with the 3-point line and this
Yeah.
and that. Our team. I gotta send this out to Coach Medicis. That our team still holds the record for scoring 110 points. I think he got 109 or 108 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if that 3-point line was there, it could have been, Coach Didio. We're talking about my playing days. We'll get into coaching, but Frank Didio always tells the story, my first boss, that he scored 91 points. That used to be a big rivalry, RFA and RCH in basketball. And Coach would say, we scored 91 points and we got beat by 19. So that was the night we scored 110. And the gyms were packed. I'll tell you, the RFA and RCH games were just packed, and I miss those times. Obviously, RCH is now no longer a program, but those were the good old days.
Coach, I always hear, you talk about the old school coaches, and, obviously I always go back and I say some of the old school coaches that you played for, my dad played for. Do you think those guys could have coached in today's game?
No, they'd all be in jail. I mean, if you can coach from jail, I mean, they probably have a good team. I mean, you put myself and the coaches that were in the next group after that, same thing. Times have changed. You can't even breathe on a kid, or you can't say the wrong word. I mean, I can remember Coach Weed. I mean, he would threaten the lineman, if you didn't get it done, you're gonna walk home, and instead of take the bus home. So I mean, it was tough. I mean, obviously there was some things that maybe you look back and you say, there was times that you're in a practice and you weren't allowed to get water, and it was tough.
Well, you guys had triple sessions, right? Triple back then?
Yeah, and the thing about it, once you started football, that was your whole day. I mean, nowadays you got, they want to do doubles, but they want to cram them together, and so that they get their ride home and this and that. It was, once you started football practice, the season was over until you played basketball or hockey or something. We had triples, and you did the kicking game at night. That was kind of a shorter practice, but it was tough. But you learn things, and that's what I always tried to teach my kids, is that it's not about the sport itself. It's what you're going to get out of the game, and the character building that not just football but all sports do.
Coach, I want to bring a couple comments over. Dennis Elder says, whatever happened to the big end you threw to Tracy Stubbs?
Well, he got actually both. There was Tracy Stubbs. He was 6'5", about 210. He got a full ride to Miami, and so did our tight end, Gary DeFazio. He was another kid about 6'5", 230 in that area, and they both got rides down at Miami. And Tracy stayed all the way, and Gary came back a little, a short time. But that's the talent you had, and that's what people were looking at. But there was also, I mean, Stubbs. I mean, you just throw it to him. I mean, that's he's one of those base kids. I mean, we had a few base kids that came in. It wasn't all base, but we'd get 2 or 3 kids that could make a difference in the program, and that's what we've lost, a while back there. But Stubbs was great. You just get it up to him, and away he goes, and he could run like the wind, So.
I got a couple other ones here. Anthony Murat, obviously great receiver, played for you, Coach. Says, best coach I've played for, high school, college, hands down. And then John Bilby, who we'll get into, he says, tell us about your time at Rome Catholic, which we'll get into here in just a second with you. Right. And then Coach Medicis, he's going to chime in. He says, 107, we're going to see what we can do to top your coach. Hopefully they even have basketball.
Just on that note alone, Jeff Didio, a good friend of mine, and Coach Didio's son, who coaches at Oneida, Coach Medicis, they hook up a little bit. And he said Coach Medicis stepped off the pedal one night, or they could have scored 120. So so I know he's had some good teams, especially with that guy he had last year. That's for sure. So.
And Coach, you got another one here. You got Ryan Harris says, appreciate everything you did for me, Coach.
I appreciate hearing that. Ryan was a good one for us in 2 sports, football and baseball. And you mentioned Anthony Murat. I mean, he led the state in receptions one year. Can't remember exactly how many it was. You get old, you forget a little bit, but it was close to 100 if it wasn't 100. And then a guy from Syracuse broke it a couple of years later, but he holds the record. I think he had 150 receptions in his career there. And then it went on, did a great job in college also. But he was a tremendous player. And again, he had Nick Martin at quarterback that year
Yep.
that was throwing the ball to him. Good combination. What happened the first couple of years there when I came from Hamilton was obviously replacing the legend Tom Hoke. It was starting to go a little bit the other way, and even Coach Mize said to me, it's a little different right now. But it took a couple of years for us to get going. But without Anthony and some of those kids that we had there, we still made sectionals and we were still in just about every game. But it started to turn the corner after their leadership, and then we never looked back. Where we had some success, didn't get the big crown, but we were very close a lot of times. So.
And Coach, I'm going to get into that in a minute. But the only other thing I wanted to ask you, and you and I were talking the other day, is you went on to play at Idaho State. And I always wanted to ask you the question, how did you land at Idaho State? I mean, that's all across the other end of here. How'd you end up there?
Well, it was, with the Miami situation, a couple of guys going to Miami, they looked at me and they said, he's too short to play quarterback at 5'10" and a half or whatever it was. But that kind of eliminated a lot of things from my position. But Idaho State, and I'll give Coach Bruce the credit, he sent the films out. And a lot of the coaches out there were from the East Coast. And Coach Griffin, who ended up being after Ed Kavanaugh for a couple of years, Bob Griffin took over, and he actually was from Rhode Island. And a number of the coaches were from the East Coast, and they were interested in getting the talent that was back on the East Coast. So, we got in talks in conversations with them. I actually, I had a trip to Texas A&M and sat with the great Gene Stallings in his office. And, some facts on him. I mean, it was unbelievable there. To make a long story short, there I would have had to walk on there, but they're a wishbone team, so it was close to being a thought. But he was part of the Junction Boys and played for Bear Bryant.
Yeah.
And here he is sitting in front of me. I mean, so football has taken me, and baseball, and taken me a long ways as far as meeting people. But getting back to the story, the final thing was I had wanted, talking to the coaches, two things. They were having a mini dome built. And it was the first on-campus dome that was built. They had the Houston Astrodome at that time, but there was no other domes. And in Pocatello, Idaho, who knows why? I mean, the weather is not much different than here. They had a dome. It's beautiful. And they said, we'll be opening up your sophomore year in 1970, and we'd like you to be out there. But my final thing was I wanted to play baseball. I had a contract to sign with the Kansas City Royals right in my hands. And, we went over the situation, and we thought possibly if the baseball worked out, it might end up down the road, something there. But they promised me I could play football and baseball. And that was probably the reason I went out there.
Yeah, I was just saying, now what's their nickname, Coach? Because Idaho's the Vandals.
Well, they're the Bengals.
The Bengals,
now,
okay.
Probably maybe another little reason, no, I'm just joking, was that they're orange and black also. So I went from orange and black at RFA to orange and black, with the Bengals at Idaho State. So that was funny.
So, Coach, as far as, coaching career, I want to start with high school first, and we'll talk Hamilton College. And you were talking about RFA, so I guess we'll start there and go backwards to Rome Catholic, and then we'll talk Hamilton College. And I did always want to ask you, because I think it's always tough to replace a legend. You replaced, you came in for Coach Hoke, and it's always tough to do that. What were your thoughts when you came in and you took over your first year? Was there any extra pressure coming back home?
Well, I think it wasn't so much that. It's just that, RFA fans want you to win. I mean, that's the pressure. Didn't matter if it was me or somebody else, whoever came back to replace them, expect you to win. And probably the hardest thing was that, there was, a couple of different philosophies. Obviously, he was a runner. And, at the latter stages of Hamilton College, I picked up the West Coast offense, where it was a balanced offense and run pass type of thing. And in the first meeting, I I had the people coming out for the team, and I said, "Where are our receivers? Could you all come up front? Because we're gonna throw the ball here, And it doesn't mean that what I tried to get across was that just a different philosophy a little bit, and times have changed a little bit, and
Yep.
so that was the thing, and I think the thing that it took a couple of years that I don't know if the kids how they would view you and how you're gonna is this guy gonna be easy and what he is, and I was very hard. I've always been a strict enforcing toughness and abide by the rules because you're
Yep.
not just an individual. When you hurt yourself, you hurt the team. And, we had some problems with, some people in establishing that. And until we got the fact that I'm trying to gain respect is just like you're trying to gain respect as a player.
Sure.
Until that all comes together, we struggled a little bit. We still got some things done on the field, but that was probably the thing. Get my philosophy, and all the coaches left. I mean, I had to deal with new coaches. I asked a few people on the staff, but they moved on, and that was something I expected them to do. But you had to break in a whole new staff who didn't know anything about me. I mean, we'd have to sit in the first meeting, and one coach said, "We're gonna throw the ball that many times." I mean. So it was hard. It was probably harder to get the coaches to believe in what we were
Yep.
trying to do versus the players.
Coach, how hard was it from Hamilton College, long time offensive coordinator for you? Did you bring a lot of those philosophies with you to high school, and did you have to obviously adapt and change it because they're high school kids, right? You can't throw the whole playbook at them. How hard was that transition?
Well, I mean, the thing, the game X's and O's. It's just how it's kind of the same. You got to block and you got to tackle, and you got to obviously stay away from penalties. I mean, the basics were there. The thing, what I tried to make it more like a college thing was the practice in itself.
Mm-hmm.
I knew starting at RCH, it was a little bit different, and I learned it at the college level on how to get some things introduced and how to get things accomplished. And that was one thing. Our format of the practice was broken down. I mean, maybe different than what they had done before, but and I know they worked play after play. I mean, I'm not trying to say anything.
Yep.
Look at the success they had, but it was just coaches doing things a little bit different. So that was kind of a thing that you had to kind of get into these guys.
Coach, I got some comments here. Let me pull over here. John Vaccaro says, the best coach I ever had next to my Uncle Ray. And then Coach Mamano, Coach was down at Fordham with me for a little bit. He says, good to see you, Coach. Hamilton was never the same without you. Thanks for putting a great game plan together for us to beat Williams. That was one of the greatest games of our 4 years there. Coach was great. You talk about passion and energy, man. He brought it at Fordham when I was there. He was great.
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, Williams was always a traditional type of a game, and as all of them, the NESCAC was tough. But those days in Hamilton, I mean, they were great. I mean, we're jumping around here a little bit, but I mean, I want to thank Coach Frank, Steve Frank, who took over. First guy, our coach there was Steve Stetson, and he later moved on to BU and then joined up with at New Hampshire and whatnot. But Steve came in a couple of years after that, and he gave me full reins of the offense, and not many head coaches would do that. I mean, it was like two head coaches there. Obviously, we would communicate on everything that I was doing on that side of the ball, but he was great at that. I mean, I can't thank him enough for just letting me go with him for 15 years and doing my thing. But it was a great time. There's no doubt about it. It was a time that we turned things around. We actually did. I mean, they hadn't won games in ages there. And in my second year there with Coach Stetson's last, I mean, we went 6-1-1, and we beat a team called Union College, who was number 2 in the nation, and that all started it. It was with a guy named Joe Gilbert at my right tackle, and Seamus Crotty, the quarterback, and Freddie Coleman, great receiver, and Bobby Fan. These are just a few guys. I mean, when you start naming guys, you get in trouble. But it all started up front, and guy named Pat Burke was the kind of a leader with Joe Gilbert, and just some great kids. And we knocked Union off, and it started it. And actually, Wagner came in the week after that, and they were a Division II team, coached by Walt Hamline, who was a quarterback at New Hartford. He was there forever, and I think he is still there. He might have just got out of the athletic director, but they came in like number 10 in the nation in Division II, and we beat that team. So we ended at 6-1-1, and it started it, and it just kept snowballing. And then near the end of our time there, the admissions people, they got harder, and it was hard to get a kid in that we got in maybe previous years. And I'll tell you, the NESCAC conference is a great football conference with a lot of good players in it, and a lot of good academic kids. I can't tell you how hard it was recruiting, because we're sitting up here in New York State, and New England schools are there, and they're jumping on all their kids down there. We have to go try to get a kid to come up here and tell them, play football. But what do we do after that when we got all this snow here? And to talk, I've been talking just football. Can I just add baseball? I was the head coach for 18 years, and there were some great kids coaching baseball, because, again, who'd want to play up here, number one? And two kids in particular that, well, actually 3 or 4 I can name. I mean, that were kind of, just great kids, and they've gone on to be great things. But Joe Yerman and Danny DePauli, they were kind of our leaders of our best team, and they stay in touch, and just fantastic guys. And then locally here, I grabbed, obviously some kids from RCH, Jeff Skibitsky, Dennis Skibitsky's nephew, who came over. He went to Buff State and then transferred to Hamilton. The last 2 years, had 2 great years at quarterback. Some dual sport kids from RCH was Mike Raymer, who was just an outstanding athlete there. He was an H-back for us in football and a pitcher in baseball. Mark Vaca, everybody knows Vaca. I keep telling him he's got to run for mayor. He should run for mayor in Rome. But he was an outstanding center for us, and he also played first base. And in baseball, he could hit a ball as hard as he could hit a golf ball, and that's pretty good. But and then there was one big guy from VVS, Joe Robonham, was an outstanding pitcher, just a great guy. And obviously Danny DeBlois, who came on and was, between him and Seamus, were probably the best quarterbacks in Hamilton College, and Danny also played for Coach Murphy in basketball. But RFA gave us some great kids too, the Eric Grays and Jason Tremlett, and again, you start naming kids and you get in trouble. Jason Tagliaferri. I had to recruit, and here's a little story. I think we're time for a chuckle here or whatever, but it was hard recruiting the local kids. Because who wants to come to Hamilton College when you're just from Utica, Rome, or this and that? I had a kid from Clinton, New York, named John Newman, who he's a great ball player, better person than he is even a player. But I'd call him, and he's from Clinton, I could walk down and talk to him on his porch almost. But I'd call him every night, and after a few calls, I don't know how I brought it out or how it came up, but I told John I played college at Idaho State. And he said, Idaho State? I said, yeah. He goes, my mom went to Idaho State. I said, nobody goes to Idaho State from around here. So to make a long story short, I knew I had John because I had his mom and me attacking him, because he didn't want to. When I'd call him, I'd just talk to John 10 seconds. I said, put your mom on. We got to talk about the Pocatello, Idaho. But he didn't really want to come, and I think he was glad he obviously came, because I tried to tell the local kids, you're the half hour away or 20 minutes, or like John, who was 10 minutes away. Everything was on the campus, and you're going to meet your friends for the rest of your life, no matter where you go. And you can't go wrong with a Hamilton College education. And I'll tell you, all these kids, I had Russell Crisp, another great baseball player from Clinton, and Bobby Alexander from Ilion, another 2-sport athlete. I mean, you don't want to keep, miss kids, but Mike Coryell became a doctor from Utica. I mean, so we got the kids locally, and I think they were happy eventually, because they've all turned out great. I mean, professionally, you can't say enough good things about these guys. They're great young men, and now great fathers and great husbands, and just doing great as far as their business. So it was a time. It was a good time.
Coach, how special is that even nowadays? I mean, I see it with my dad, and I mean, even in the short time that I was coaching, when you see some of the old players that you can share stories with, they still call you coach. They still come around and say, "Thanks, coach, for what you did." You know, you've left an impact on so many athletes. How special is it to still be called coach and still be able to have some of those conversations with some of your players?
Well, I still call everybody coach that I run into. I've left one coach out, and that's, and I was going to talk about him, but it's a respect factor. To get back to your question, it's something. It's a two-way street. As I told you, that's what I tried to build at RFA when I came from Hamilton. But it's something, a connection. It doesn't come easy, and it's through hard work, and it's through kids believing that you're there for them. And I've always tried to tell parents, you may not see it, because you see the games and you see a few practices, but you're not with these kids as much as I am, as far as in a tough situation type of thing. I worked for these kids that they would be better. And when they call me coach, I feel like I've got their respect. And I started to go off a little bit. And the one guy that I have an awful lot of respect is Coach Evans. And he'll be on your show and whatever. I mean, so many kids have talked about, what Coach Evans has done for him. And just, sorry, I only got a chance to play for him in baseball. And, some people say he was a better baseball coach than he was a basketball coach. But, he's good in both of them, great in both of them. But, I want to thank him. I have thanked him before, but he was the reason I got to Hamilton College in the first place. And he knew Coach Murphy over there, and he obviously put in a good word and set up the interview, and then I could take it from there. But lifetime friend now, and just a great person. So back to the respect that the kids had, and what I tried to get a little bit is, how coaches always have a break at the end of practice or just before you go out on the field. They put their hands together and they try to give a little yell. My yell was always, on three, give me a win. And I told them it wasn't just to win the game. It was to now win in the classroom, win as a brother, win as a friend, win at just being better in life.
Yep.
And it was a reminder that I wanted them to always to know that no matter how times get tough out there, that I'm a winner. And that's what I tried to instill everyone. I don't care, from the top kid to the low kid, that you were a winner. And that's why I always broke. And I did it not only in college. Here's a funny story. I came from Hamilton College, and mainly obviously to take the football job, but they needed a baseball coach at the modified level.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took it there, and I did the same thing there. I mean, let's win. And then I told them why you're saying win. So, that was the thing. I hope that we gained respect from them. It's so many kids that came out of here, and I'm forgetting one. I mean, it just popped in my head, that Herb Hand from Westmoreland.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
he played for your dad at Westmoreland,
Yep.
and he got in the HEOP pro thanks to Chris Johnson, who was a great lady at Hamilton College. But Herb was another guy that made it big. That, and it's just so many kids have came out of Hamilton. But there's other schools, and I want to get to RCH also.
Yep.
Because that's where it all started.
Well, let me bring some more comments over here, Coach. Coach Vaccaro, Gabe Vaccaro says, how about Coach Davis leading a Rome Pop Warner team to a 6-6 tie? And I've heard this story numerous times, in Georgia against a county-wide all-star team. Rome had touchdowns called back, and he says, and Jerry Cork played on that team. Kids were different then, and Coach Davis was always one of the best.
Well, I appreciate Gabe saying that. Gabe worked for us when I came there. He had been working for so long with Coach Hulk at the modified level of football. Again, another great young man who kept at it, stayed with it for so many years. But his dad took us not only down there, but that team, it was called St. John's, actually. Had some great kids on it, but we were undefeated and unscored upon.
Yep. Yep.
Hadn't been scored upon. So Coach Vaccaro said, well, we're getting invited to this bowl game in Milledgeville, Georgia, down near Macon, Georgia. Now, it's a long ways to go. We got in these couple of these planes. I didn't think we'd make it back, the planes we were on, but we got ahead 6-0, and they actually, I think they might have got ahead 6-0. We scored and tied it up, and we missed the extra point, and ended up in a 6-6. They don't play overtime or anything like that. But I don't know. I can't remember touchdowns called back or whatever. But that we took on an all-star team and not just a team, so that was a nice time on there.
Wally Bressler, coach, says looking great. And then John Newman says the best coach I ever had and a great recruiter. True story. Said thanks for getting me there. Glad I came to Hamilton.
Again, Wally was a great player. He played for Coach 80 on the D line there, and I talked about John. He was a center for us and just a great individual. And there's so many of them. They're outstanding. But as I said, it all started at RCH and how I got there. Let me again. I hope I'm not talking too much over your rock.
No.
But when I was at Idaho State, I didn't know what I was going to be doing. I was lucky enough to, the football program was outstanding there. I mean, again, the Big Sky Conference, it was all Division I at that time, and we were 1 and 2 and 3. That's how it was broken down. I did the football and baseball, and then what was I going to do? I was lucky enough to make all conference in both, which I was very proud of. And Coach Griffin asked me to stay on. Me and my wife had to finish up our student teaching, and he asked me to GA there, and that's where I learned football. I played Pop Warner all the way through freshman JV, varsity sports, and then 4 years of college football, and you think you know it. You don't know nothing until you actually get in there and sit with people at the college level, I think. And I would say that to anybody out there who want to get into football, go visit a school. You can go to clinics and you'll hear things and get a couple of things, but it's nothing like going to a college and sitting down for 2 or 3 days with a staff and learn the game. And that's where I learned it from Coach Griffin and his staff. And it was just a thing that if I hadn't have done that, I don't know. I don't even know if I would have gotten into coaching. So that's where we went with that. And we were just married, my wife, and we were out there finishing our student teaching. We came back to Rome. I dragged her back here, which, she kind of yells at me from time to time, even now, after 48 years. But we started here, and I was lucky enough a job opened up at Rome Catholic, and that's where it all started. And it took off from there.
And Coach, let me just bring up one more comment, and we'll get back into. I want to get into Rome Catholic with you a little bit too. But Dave Spragley says, describe the feeling of playing in front of 4,000 fans at RFA Stadium on a Friday night, and also playing in a packed Laurel Street gym for basketball.
Well, Dave, 4,000 times 2. If there wasn't 8,000 people there, it was a bad night. And I'm not kidding you. It's there was said that one night. I was a sophomore, and we played Whitesboro, both undefeated, and there had to be 10,000 people there. The stadium right now, as you see it, is nothing in the end zones. Where we had the whole square, bleachers in both sides of the end zones, and everything was packed. So, and I'm not exaggerating. You ask any of the old timers, it was at least 8,000 every night on a Friday night, just electrifying. I mean, my parents would get out of work and be at 5 o'clock at the stadium on the 50-yard line.
Yep.
Your dad would be there also. I mean, your grandfather would be there also. And, it was a time that you hear about Texas football, and we were very close to it. We really were. And they closed up the shops and the streets, and everybody in town was there. And you had to win. And we did. We put, like I said, there was a period in there of 5 undefeated seasons, and we were dominant. But and then the basketball gyms, the heat, it was just stifling when people came into that Stroud gym there. It was Laurel Street at that time, Laurel School, and it was just, you had a little bit of advantage. We could beat most people in those days except one team, and it was Notre Dame. And they seemed to have our number pretty much every time we played them. And it was a good conference, the COL, back in those days. But those gyms were filled also, packed.
Coach, I want to get in at Rome Catholic because you had, I believe it was 7 seasons there, right, Coach?
Well, I was there 9, but 7 as a head coach.
Head coach. And
Yep.
I'm going to see if my numbers are right here. So in the 7 years as the head football coach, start there, 43, 16, and 2 Section 3 titles. Does
Right.
that sound about right?
Yep, that's right. And I think it was three or four division championships, whatever. But we won the first Section 3 championship in 1979, then came back and won it in 1980. And we really probably had a better team in 1981, and we got knocked off 10-7 from your old school, Sequoia. And they had Byron Abraham there,
Yep,
who
yep.
later transferred to Notre Dame, and the quarterback Steve Owens was there, who actually kicked a field goal, but it could have been 3 in a row there. But again, now there's some players, and it all started with coaches. Obviously, Coach Ski, Dennis
Yep.
Skibitsky was my right hand man there, and the late great Tommy Berry, he was with us, and Jerry Farini also worked in the football end of it. But you had so many people that worked together there as far as the staff goes. Marty Gomez, baseball, football guy. Obviously, and there's one, Mike Adie, who was a legendary basketball coach, was on my freshman football coach. And I don't want to get into stories about Coach Adie and his football days, so we'll leave it at that. But these were people that, again, were all under Frank Didio's tutelage, and he brought us all in there. And then you want to start naming players. I mean, the other coaches too. I mean, there was Bill Fleet, obviously.
Yep.
There was Gene Sanborn there. God, who else was? Jimmy Kenny, obviously. I mentioned Ray Vaccaro. The late great Joe Ryan was part of that RCH staff in a number of ways. You don't want to leave people out, but there were some great ones there. I remember Rocky Balzano helping, Jerry, for just so many people that your dad helped me and did baseball.
Yep.
But it was a great time with, the thing with, if you ever work at a Catholic school, you find out that, and I was young, I was 23 years old or something when I started that. I mean, the kids were 18 years old, and I'm trying to tell them, what to do is, and it was hard early, and you had to put your foot down. But I think, again, these are guys like you mentioned, John Carroll, Big John. He was mainly a basketball guy, and we got him out to play football. He ended up getting a full ride to Northeastern, and he turned it down, I mean, for other reasons. But that's how good a football player he was, and an athlete. But I mean, we had kids. Joe Meliors, he played football one year and ended up getting a full ride to Miami. God, there were so many kids that were great. The late great Dale Deheimer, just an outstanding person and a player. We had guys. Here's the story. We would get. We didn't recruit them, but they came. A lot of them came from Westmoreland. The Kernan boys and Jeff Denny. He got a ride to Rhode Island. Jimmy DeProspo got a ride. Let me tell you a little story about this. Ought to make you laugh a little bit. But there was this guy named Rod Armstrong. He came from and again. The Bilbys, we had the Bilby family, we had the Roberts family, we had the Smat families. I mean, we can go on and on. And the Bilbys were the best, I'll tell you, because you mentioned John there, and it just brought back a memory there. But they were all good ones. But we got this guy, Rod Armstrong from Westmoreland, little guy, but maybe one of the best running backs we had, him and Brian Crowley, who ended up going to Colgate. But here's the story. Now, Rod played for us, and his brother Randy played for Westmoreland. And Big Bob, his father, would come and watch all our practices. And we were playing Westmoreland that week, and I said we were putting in our trick plays, the reverses and the passes, and I said to Dennis Skibitsky, I said, go tell Bob if he wouldn't mind leaving our practice. And Dennis said, what? He said, they might be sitting around the table and talk, hey, here comes a reverse. And that's how superstitious coaches are. Now, Bob was a good guy. I mean, and Dennis goes, you want me to go for it? He's 6'6", and he's about 300 pounds. I said, yeah, he won't mind it. So I see Dennis go over to the fence, and there he goes. He's talking to Bob, and all of a sudden I see Bob sprinting. I said, "Oh, this didn't go over too good." And so next thing I know, Bob comes around the corner and comes through the school, and he grabs Rod and took him out of there. So I guess he didn't take it well. Well, Frank Didio came to our, he saved the day again and talked him into it. Rod was back out there a couple hours later. But that was kind of a funny thing between them. We had some good kids from Westmoreland. So.
Got more comments over here, Coach. I got David Smith. Smitty says, enjoyed watching Coach when he played football and baseball at RFA, tremendous athlete. Fast forward to softball, his all-star team was also a great game with my team and gave me a nickname that still today he still calls me. I don't know if I could ask what that nickname is, but
yeah, that's Gates. We called him. It was a guy for the Detroit Tigers called Gates Brown, and Smitty looked just like him, and that's what we kind of tagged him. Me and Jimmy Burns, and every time I see him now to this day, I call him Gates. So kind of likes that.
Dan Gifford says definitely the best coach of all time. Great leader, great man.
Yeah,
Thanks,
great. Dan was a great receiver. A little guy could run like the wind, and he was part of that great team that we went to. We went to the Dome. You guys went. You went to the Dome for the state championship in '96, I think it was, and we headed there in 206 with Aaron Gregory as the quarterback, and Giff was one of our receivers, and Jeremy Meyer, and just some great people. Again, you can't name them all, and I love them all, but he was a great player. Giff was, and he was kind of a compliment from Jeremy, who was 6'3" and whatever, and Giff would run by at his short height, but he was a good one. I don't know when we're going to get into my family at all, and I certainly don't.
It's coming.
Okay, all right, go ahead. You're in control of this.
You got my agenda, Coach. We're kind of going right in order here. But I did want to ask you this, because even back when Justin and I played, one of the big things was we always used to joke with the Rome Catholic kids. It was always a big competition in football, every sport. There was a lot of great Rome Catholic kids that, could have played at RFA, right? I mean, there was a lot of great athletes.
Oh, if you could ever put the two teams together,
yeah,
we played UFA back-to-back years. RFA played them too in the same year.
Yeah,
I mean, we were like a C school, and they're an 8 school. And the first year we played them down there, we beat them, by, I don't know, 30 points or 40 points. I can't even remember the score, but we probably beat them better than RFA did. And like I said, on that team, there was people that went all over the place,
Yeah.
And I can't remember hooking up the exact years, but you had, Dennis's nephew Jeff was a great quarterback for us, and you had Brian Crowley, and you had some great players. And then we played them, and here's the first: we played UFA back at RFA the next year, and we were up. I don't know, 24-0 or something. And the last play of the half, Dave Bilby laid a hit, as good a hit as I've seen over the middle on one of their receivers. And the crowd just, was going crazy. And off we went into the locker rooms. And then we get wind. Here comes Coach Didio down to tell us that UFA left. And what do you mean they left? You mean they left the field? No, they're going home. We beat them up, and then we sent them home at halftime. Have you ever heard a team leaving at halftime? And
no.
Eddie O'Brien, who is doing the play-by-play, he was just dumbfounded. And I went up to him in the press line. He says, "Well, what do we do?" And I said, "We could scrimmage if you want." But yeah, there was some good team players. And again, I do I don't do justice if I don't name them all, and it's hard. I mean, you think about 40 years, almost 40 years of coaching, and I'm throwing some names out there, and I love them all. I mean, if I'm not mentioning your name, it doesn't mean anything. But there's one guy that kind of was a funny story from the RFA connection over to Hamilton College. Things are just floating in my head. That's why they're coming up.
No, that's good.
But the mayor of Hamilton College is Paul Lady. You know that. I mean. Yep. The story is, Paul was still coaching, with RFA, the JV team and whatnot, and I was over in Hamilton, and I after the first year there, I said, I think Coach Eddie would fit in good, and we needed a defensive line coach, and So I gave him a call and I said, look, you'd love it to come over here. It doesn't, you're at RFA. I know it's, prestigious and whatnot, but you'll see. These kids are great and you're going to love it. Says, all right, I'll come over. And he interviewed with Coach Stetson and he had the job. I mean, he didn't have to do it, but I said, as I said to him, if you don't like it, you can go back. He's still there. So that was like almost 35 years ago. But what a great friend and, trooper he's been for the kids at Hamilton College. And I know you have them. Yep. They'll go crazy talking about him. But
Coach, the other thing I wanted to ask you too is, we'll get into the family piece here too, but when you decided to hang it up and get out of coaching, I know you were able to follow Justin and his coaching career. How tough was it for you, to hang the whistle up and say, you know what, it's time to do something different, follow my son? Because I say, once you're a coach, you're always a coach, right? But how tough was it for you?
Well, it was the hardest thing you do in your life. I mean, like I said, it's something I'd coached over 35 years of football at all different schools, and the baseball, the same thing. I did both sports. I even coached basketball when I first started out, it's hard. I mean, you're going to put down something that you did every day, but it was time. And what happens usually is that there's a difference with the college coaching and the high school. The big difference is that you don't deal with parents, okay, at the college level. You recruit with through the parents and whatnot. You only see them at a home game or something for a little bit, and you feel justice of talking with the parents that you've recruited. And so you don't deal with them. You just deal with the kids. And that's the big thing in high school, because parents get involved and sometimes too much. And, I used to, and we're getting to why I got out. I mean, that's probably a little bit of it. I mean, after a while, it does get to you a little bit. And, you're trying to beat your head against the wall about trying to tell parents that, it's not all about winning. It's not all about your kid starting. It's not about whether he should have been playing here or there versus this kid. It's about being a better person. And after a while, it just doesn't seem like it's sinking in. And that was a little bit of it. The other part was, it was hard not seeing my kids play.
Yeah.
I had two girls that were tremendous athletes, and we'll get into that in a second. And obviously Justin, who played with you. And I mean, I didn't even see the semi game that led up to the state champs because I was coming back from Maine. I mean, so we missed a lot, which my wife took care of, being both the mom and dad. And I just felt at that time, Justin was at Navy, the perfect time to now see him a little bit more and see my daughters and my grandkids a little bit more. And, we got a place down in Annapolis. And now it's a little better situation, but it was to spend more time with the rest of the kids and the grandkids. It was about time, and as I mentioned it earlier, it was starting to get to you a little bit.
And Coach, I know we talk about Justin, but as you just said, both your daughters were both great athletes.
Well, let's talk about them first. There was Jennifer, my oldest, gymnastics. That's what she was, and again. Coach Evans' daughter, Kristen, was there, and Cindy Kegley. That crew they were all together. That's all they did. They were gymnastics and did outstanding in the high school. And Jennifer went on to Cortland State, and her senior year she was an All-American, and that tells you what kind of athlete she is. She's now a teacher in the Rome school system. Has been now for 20 years or so, but. And then there's my youngest, Nicole, who's probably the best athlete of all of us. She played softball and was an all-conference softball player. She played for Jerry T-ball, and we both tried to tell her to stay off the high ones, and I love the high ones, But she, her sport was field hockey there, and played for Coach Harjung, and just had an outstanding high school career. Ended up getting a scholarship to Mercyhurst College, Division II, and actually led the nation one year in scoring. I mean, how's that? Was an All-American ended up being an All-American at Mercyhurst, and she's now working in Albany with a plastic surgery group that is a consultant to patients and doing very well right now. And then there's Justin. Obviously, his high school career was unbelievable. He still holds the records for interceptions. I think it's 16 or 17. You played with him, Rock.
17.
You were the guy who threw. Yeah, I think it was 17. Still a record.
Yep.
He was in the top 50 in New York State his senior year. Got a scholarship to play at Maine. It was a hard decision because he could have went to a smaller school and played every down wherever he went, but he chose Maine to do the bigger thing.
Yep.
And he was mainly a backup linebacker, but he played behind a couple of guys that are in the NFL right now. That not right now, but back in his time. So that's the competition he had. And I remember one story that he was playing Jamie Harper, University of Connecticut team up there, and Justin was on the special team as far as the punt return, and he knifed through and blocked the punt and led to a touchdown there, and obviously it led to a win up there. So that was a highlight that he has over Harp right now. But he got out of when he graduated. He was didn't know what he was going to do. He was down in Charlotte and stuck in a room as far as doing business. And after a year, he said, "This isn't what I want to do." I said, "Well, look, let me make a call to Walt Hamline down in Wagner, and I'm sure he'd like to bring you on as a GA." And again, going through it a little bit quicker, but he did that. You know who his roommate was at his first college job down at Wagner was?
Who's that?
Patrick Graham. You know who he is? He's a defensive coordinator for the Giants.
I was just gonna say, but where was he from though? Wasn't he another local guy?
No. I'm not even. No, I'm not sure. You have to ask Justin, but he wasn't from around here. But Patrick ended up going all over the place in college. He was with Notre Dame. We'd visit Notre Dame. He took us all through the place, Notre Dame. But he ended up with Belichick at New England, and then he was at Miami, I believe. They're bouncing around a little bit, but he's now the defensive coordinator. But that's where Justin started at Wagner. Went to Louisiana Tech, got his master's there. Went to Toledo, a couple years there, and then got the job at Navy. And he was there for 12, 13 years until just a year ago that he hung it up. But the thing about getting down, there's nothing like those 12 years that my wife and I spent there. If you've ever been to an Army-Navy game, it's just the end of. And I know after one, I had better seats than the president. There's 3 presidents at the game. I had better seats than them.
Jeez.
And these are memories. I had a chance to meet Roger Staubach, after one of the Army-Navy games. I was invited. We went to the Notre Dame game, and we always brought some people with us, and we'd always bring them down on the field on the Friday. If you're lucky enough, you got to go in the Notre Dame locker room on the day before. I've been in their locker room 2-3 times. Then one time, Justin gave me Coach Niamontalolo gave me a pass to come down on the sideline, and it doesn't get any better than that. We saw Navy beat Notre Dame at Giant Stadium. We saw a Notre Dame game where Navy beat them in triple overtime, the first time Navy team to beat Notre Dame in 25 years. We saw Navy beat Notre Dame in Jacksonville. Justin was all a part of this. He got out because, again, wants to be a family man a little bit more than I was. And so he's had a great career. He's doing well now. He's in human resources right now down in Annapolis. So, and the last person is really the legend, and that's my wife. She like I said was the father and the mother when I wasn't there, and she'd bring them up, pack them in a car, come to a football game up in Maine, travel back, and go to all their games when I couldn't be there. But on top of all that, she was a coach for 35 years.
Yeah.
And one of the best coaches at Stroud Junior High that they've ever had. She worked with the late great Jim Rafferty, and they were a team. And she was a track coach for over 30 years with the women's junior high. Never lost a meet.
And I
I
think
don't think many
my
people know
sister still
that.
tells the story that your wife is still the reason that my sister plays field hockey.
Well, yeah, I think
I think she
Debbie had
helped her
something.
pass the written test.
Yeah, I think Debbie had something to do with that. She got her through that. But if you think about the hundreds and thousands of people that, I go to a grocery store, we might be together, and they say, "Hey, Coach Davis," and I turn to say hi, and it's for her, it's not for me. She knows more people and have helped more kids in this city than I ever have. And I always coach, kid coach Evans. I say, your name up there. My wife's name should be right up there with you. But obviously, Coach Evans is well deserved. But she spent 35 years in that gym. And if the kids go by Stroud, just think of her. And a lot of them do, I think.
Yeah.
So that's the Davis family, and they're quite a group.
So, Coach, two last things, and I want to bring a couple more comments, and I'll wrap it up with you. But I know nobody likes to compare generations. My class with Justin, we always talk about. People ask, "Well, what was the best class? What was the best team?" And obviously, my dad always says, "Well, we didn't have the sectionals in the states, but we never lost a game." And I always say, "Well, I think it was '97 or '96." But we went all the way to the state finals. That's the furthest that any team's gotten.
Yes.
What do you think? Could our team have played against your team? Could we have beat you guys?
Yeah, you guys weren't tough enough. No, I mean, the difference. What I say it is, of course you could have played. I mean, I was at that game. You guys played Roosevelt of Yonkers, and it was back and forth a little bit in that game. Um, the difference is, I think, is that we had some small weight rooms and whatnot. I mean, and we didn't have, you have everything, and
Yeah.
even in the '90s, there, the late '90s, you had Coach Mize who really went to work on the weights and whatnot. We did some of that. We actually had to do it with our, the Rakowski brothers. I mean, they kind of formulated with Paul Lady and they kind of started the weight program. The kids nowadays have speed coaches. They have this and
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But even back in your time, it was probably, you might have been a little bigger and stronger and whatnot. But I do think that in our day and even the years before our, me and your dad's days, these guys were tough. They're tough people, and their parents were tough, and you said yes sir and yes ma'am,
Yep.
and you respected your teachers, and that's what made us tough, I think, and that's the character it was building. I think the difference is, I mean, both teams were good athletically, and bottom line is that I think if you play sports, or this time right now is killing people. I just feel so sorry for these people,
Yep.
these seniors and seniors of last year, and even in the colleges are not playing at the Division III and whatnot. You just feel so sorry for these kids because you need sports, and not just I've got two grandkids. I got four grandkids. I got Jake and Kaylee from Jennifer, and Gianna and Ava from Justin. Right now they're just being hampered. I mean, Jake is a tremendous athlete, and Kaylee dances all year round. It's for the girls that can't dance right now. It's not getting in school. It's for the people in music. The bands can't get together. The activities, you name it. This is killing these kids, and I feel so sorry for them because what you get out of athletics is you just can't get it. It's character building, and things are lifelong lessons that I feel bad, but that's kind of circling around a little bit. But you guys could have played with us. I'm sure it would have been interesting. That's for sure.
Coach, how about, and this is the last thing, and I got a bunch of comments I'll bring over before we wrap it up, but when you talked about your offense when you came over to Rome, and obviously when I played, it was more of, option. Maybe I threw it 6-7 times a game, if that really. But
Right.
what do you think that if we would have had your offense when Justin and I played, you think it would have worked with the group that we had?
No doubt. I mean, because first of all, I mean, you had tremendous lines. I
Yeah.
mean, you don't win football games with the lines, and that's where it starts. And with our offense, I mean, when I brought the West Coast offense, you think it's just throwing a ball around, And it's not. It's the 49ers started it, and I learned it from Jason Verduzco, a coach that we had that came and worked at Hamilton College. It's a run and pass. They
Yeah.
set up both, and there's no doubt. And again, I mean, why change anything when you won? I mean,
Right.
there's no doubt about it. You guys won. I mean, so why change it? I ran a clinic one time, a high school clinic, and Coach Hope came over with a few of the staff, and I started doing some running plays in a little bit, and he says, "Oh, geez, how about some pass plays?" I said, "Why? You're never going to throw the ball." So he didn't have to. They just ran it down your throat. But I can imagine with the lines that you guys had, the thing that bothers me nowadays is that these college, it's unbelievable. Everybody's shotgun. Everybody's back in the gun there, and or pistol or whatever, and everything's zone read, and get under center.
Yeah.
I mean, get under center. I've seen high school, especially. I've seen games lost because you had a bad snap starting on the goal line. Everybody wants to get in the shot. Get back under center, be balanced, run some traps, run some sweeps, run some options, run your draw from under, you can still do short, you do your play actions, you run your boots. I just don't see it. It's just boring to me right now. And I know you got great athletes. Sit them back there at quarterback, and away they go. But it would have been fun. It would have been fun on the sidelines, with some of you guys. You guys had some athletes there, that's for sure.
So, Coach, let me just bring up some last few comments here. Mark Anthony says, couldn't ask for a better coach or a mentor. Nothing but great memories. And then we got Tom Delhunt. Loved playing for this guy. Let's see. Rob Coluccio says, great coach, great guy. JB, Jerry Burleson says, great coach. Let's see what else we got. Mark D. Dominic, great athlete and coach, but a great all-around guy also. John Bilby says, great interview with a great guy. Truly enjoyed this. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. Yeah. Josh Maz had the privilege of playing in the last game he ever coached. 12 seniors on the team. He impacted every single one of us. Thank you, Coach.
Got beat 8-7 to Liverpool. Extra innings.
Let's see. Vaca says, Rock, the world needs more Coach Davis. I agree with that.
Where's the ones that didn't like me?
Dave Bruce says, terrific interview, Coach. Great to hear from you. Absolutely. And then Coach 80, Uncle Paul says, great Osbo.
We're not telling that story. But, I had the pleasure of, over the years in college, I had roommates that played in the NFL. I mean, Tom Toner played for the Packers, and John Roman played for the Jets. A couple of stories there. We had a guy named Mike Hancock who played tight end, was on George Allen's Washington team back in the old days. Never kept a rookie, but he kept Mike Hancock out of Idaho State. I just remember these things. Had great, time playing with him. We played baseball. Rock got close to being almost to the Final Four in Omaha. You know who beat us and stopped us? Gonzaga.
There we go.
There's our basketball.
Yeah.
But I remember those things. But someone, I spoke at I was privileged enough to speak at the New York State High School baseball clinic in Cooperstown. So I had a chance to speak in the Hall of Fame. I'll never forget it. And I was out, you do a couple of sessions, and I was out there speaking on catching. And one guy said, he raised his hand and said, what, at that point time, I had left Hamilton College after 18 years of coaching baseball, and I was coaching modified. I went from 22-year-olds to, 13 or 4, whatever. And they go, what is the biggest difference you've seen from coaching from college to baseball at the low level from kids in modified? And I said, probably the biggest difference was, I remember our first away game, and we got on the bus, yellow bus, not a coach, yellow bus. That was a difference. And we got about 2 blocks out, and the noise going on, these kids talking. You got to calm down, I turned back around, and we get another block, and it was loud. And I got up and I started screaming, if I hear any more noise, I'm going to turn the bus back and we're not going to play. So I sat down and I said to the bus driver, I said, "Leave this." He goes, "Geez, I didn't think they were bad, coach." And that's the difference in our bus trips. These guys in Hamilton would grab as many books as they can get and go into the bus, and you wouldn't hear a peep. And
Yep.
it was a little different bus rides, but the baseball was the same. I tried to tell at the clinic that I was doing catching drills. I said, "You're going to teach catching the same ways that if you're in little league as if you're in high school or college or whatever." And I was leaving after my talk, and the guy who came out after me was a guy named Bill Lee, the spaceman. You ever hear of him? Pitched for the Boston Red Sox and just one of their best pitchers in the history there. And he turned to me and says, "You sure I didn't throw to you down in the minor leagues somewhere?" So, I mean, these are things that are coming up in my head. It was just a great time to be able to speak down in the Hall of Fame. It was just, it was something.
Well, Coach, last thing, you got to give me Super Bowl prediction: Tampa or Kansas City?
Well, I'm pulling for. I mean, Joe Gilbert, my offensive lineman. That's where I got my shirt on for him. Me and Coach 80 and the wives went down and saw him last year, and this was before they had the man, though, Tom Brady. And I texted him just a couple days ago. I said, "Keep him upright," and we got a chance. And so I'm pulling for Tampa. But as far as a coach looking at the game, I think whoever plays better defense is going to win this game. You're talking about offense, but I mean, coaches look to the defense. Who can shut down that explosive Kansas City offense is if they can do it defensively. We talked earlier. I mean, Tampa Bay's got the running game going, and if you can run the ball, it doesn't matter what game you're in. If you can establish the run game, you're going to win. So those are factors. I don't know who's going to win. I'm pulling for Tampa, that's for sure. So we'll
Coach,
see what happens.
Listen, this was the rest of these guys over the next 3 months is going to be tough to beat you as the opening act.
Well, you got great ones, and you know what? You've got other great ones in City Rock, and I know. Yeah, I'm not just, but you got the Artis and Fracos and Jerry Burlesons, and again, there you go, Eric Mayes, Major League. I mean, there's so many great people in this town, and again, I just want to leave it at saying I hope I touched some people in the right way. It might not have seemed it at first with all the yelling and the screaming and this and that, but deep down, and to let parents know that's what I was about, trying to help these kids be better people, and I know most of them have been, and that's something that we try to do as coaches, and yourself as well. That, and hopefully we've touched some people.
Well, Coach, listen, you've always been good to my family, and I appreciate that. And you're more than welcome to do this again. We love you, and I can't thank you enough. It was an honor to have you.
I appreciate it, Rock. And one last thing for all those, I thank my wife over and over. She's the best that is in this family, and I love her to death. And she's kept everything here. But to all those other coaches' wives out there, you guys are the unsung heroes. Your wife and your dad's Carolyn, outstanding people, and Bonnie out there, and just all you wives that put up with all these coaches. You guys are the unsung heroes. We wouldn't be there without you. So thanks, Rock.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
All right, Coach. I appreciate you. Thank you. Man, was that awesome or what? I mean, I was looking, him and I were talking before, and he was asking how long do the shows go, and I said, I don't know. We could probably talk 2-3 hours. But it was great, and Coach had again told a lot of good stories and what it was like to come in for Tom Hoke. And I was going to talk to him a little bit about at the end. He was actually obviously one of the Rome Sports Hall of Fame. He was with the class of '86. He went in with Richie Evans. I wanted to get into him a little bit about that, but we're way over time. But thanks again, Coach. And again, thank you for everybody following the show. Just subscribe on YouTube. Next week, I am pumped up because I get them one-on-one for the first time in a long time. I get to talk to Coach Evans next week. But this time I got to make sure he knows I'm in control here. I'm the one running the show and not him. but I can't wait to have them. So on behalf of myself tonight, again, I want to thank the Rome Sports Hall of Fame for putting this on over the next couple months. I am loaded with guests. I can't wait. It is great to be back again after being out for 2 weeks. And thanks again to Coach Davis. So on behalf of myself and the Rock Pile, I always say it, and I'll say it again, the Rock Pile is where dreams become reality. Enjoy the week, everybody.